Welcome everyone to this Tuesday night English version for Las Vegas Spiritus Center. And we will begin tonight with prayer, as always. So, if at all possible, close your eyes, take a nice, slow, deep breath. And as you continue to breathe slowly and deeply, begin to connect with God, with all the spirits that guide you in your life, with all the spirits that you sense the presence of at this moment, and for all the spirits undetected, we ask you all to be ready for new information, for deeper understanding, and for God's guidance on how to apply what it is that we hear, read, and learn. And we ask for permission to begin tonight's study. And so be it. Okay, what I thought I would do is, if I can get screen sharing, I will share a quick summary of what we did last time. There it is. So hopefully you are now seeing the document beginning with the spirit hierarchy. So previously, we began with question number 100 in the Spirit's book and began to delve into the hierarchy of the spirit world. There was an introductory set of information. Whoops. There was an introductory set of information. There it is. And it explained how classifications will take place. And when I say will take place, have taken place, but it is in the understanding of how the spirits themselves have chosen to classify the different levels of the spirit hierarchy. So they are grouped, and from the lower spirits to the higher spirits, we begin with the third order, or the imperfect spirits. And again, some general characteristics of why they are here, and then the reality that there are 5 classes of these third level spirits. And the definitions with each are extremely good and easy to understand, so that this becomes a very good reference for the future. As we read this, it is a natural tendency to look for our own characterizations and see how we fit into some of these descriptions. We then went into the second order, or the good spirits, and began to understand how their qualities exist and manifest themselves. And that there are 4 of those classes, 5, 4, 3, and 2, if you will, of these different qualities of these elevated spirits. And then there are the highest spirits, the first order, the purest of the spirits. And there is only one class, the first class. And that is where we stopped and then had a short discussion. So I open it up if there are any questions. And if not, we will continue on with question number 114.
No questions so far.
Good. Okay. So the spirits progress through these 10 different levels, these three different classes. All spirits do. And as the progression takes place, a number of questions are now asked. Are spirits good or bad by nature? Or are the same spirits made better by the force of their own efforts? And it is the latter. The same spirits are made better through their own efforts. They rise from a lower to a higher order as they improve. It is interesting to think about the progression of spirits and whether or not, and maybe we'll hit this question, and whether or not they occur only during incarnations or do they occur after discarnation, or are some of the progressions contingent on both? So I've had that question rattling in my head as I prepare to read the Spirit's book and the hierarchy and progress. Number 115, are some spirits created good and others bad? Well, God created all spirits simple and unaware, meaning they lack all knowledge. They have to be taught, they have to learn. God has given them each a particular mission, and it will enlighten them and help them progress forward towards perfection. And they'll do this by gaining knowledge of the truth and in the process rising closer to God. In that highest order, in that perfection, they will find eternal bliss without any troubles. They will have no troubles. Spirits acquire knowledge by experiencing the trials inflicted by God. While some accept these trials with resignation and arrive at their destiny more quickly, others are defiant and remain far from the perfection and happiness promised to them through no fault other than their own. Now, this is where I might begin to answer the question I raised earlier is, as a human in incarnate form, I absolutely can relate to this, that my free will not my free will getting in the way of my progression. And I can see directly it's no fault of other than my own. My lack of discipline, my laziness, my whatever.
And both answers have the same meaning, even though the first answer is so small and then the second one it's so big, but the first one is talking about the same thing, right? Is their own effort. There is no one else to blame but yourself.
That's right.
Can't point fingers. And also I like the fact that it's talking about the obstacles that are put it in your, how are you gonna use them for good? Are you gonna use them to better yourself, or you're gonna be stuck?
Correct. And this is for me. rereading the details and definition of the 10 classes, in particular 10, 9, 8, 7, and 6, I would expect that every person who reads these sees parts of their own character in some of those details and definitions. Question number 115 is important to me because it says that every spirit began at the lowest level, and through trials and learning, they progress upwards and gain progress towards being a good spirit. At the present time, they're not quite there yet.
That's right. And the fact that, this says that all spirits are created simple is just like some of the examples that we see on the gospel. It talks about just like a child. They all they're all born with the same knowledge, and then the knowledge is acquired through life. Of course, depending on the environment you put on and things like that. But we all go to school. We all have to pass our grades, so it's a natural progress that happens, and everyone has the same chance. I think that's very important too,
Yeah.
because even though some people are born in different levels of financial condition and things like that, but the spirit is they're all the same, right?
Yes. And you know, I find it reassuring when there are statements that apply to all spirits. So, you know, it's reassuring to me that all spirits acquire knowledge by experiencing the trials inflicted by God. There's no shortcuts. There's no spirits that bypass that process. They all go through that process. And so the knowledge that there are higher level spirits who have progressed through that is very encouraging to me. Let me continue and finish this second last part. Part A. According to the statement, spirits are like children. This is what you were saying, Samantha. Like children when they are born, unaware and without experience. However, gradually they acquire the knowledge that they lack by experiencing the different phases of human life. Yes, that is a fair comparison. Rebellious children remain ignorant and imperfect. How much they benefit depends on their obedience. A person's life has an end, while that of spirits extends beyond infinity.
And I didn't even read that. See?
Yeah, I know. Uh, it is a powerful caveat, the Latin word, when it says how much they benefit depends on their obedience. So uh, I make this analogy. Um, Not because I'm a rebellious child, because I'm a rebellious adult. I have have had the ego that just because somebody who I respect might give me some advice, that doesn't mean I have to take it. And therefore the analogy for me is, you know, there's a door back here and I can walk over to the door and open it and walk through the door. That's the easy way. That's what the advice usually says to do. Or I can do it my way and try to walk through the wall. And after bumping my head enough times, then we stop and we start doing things properly. And I consider that to be an analogy on the progress side because I find myself listening to advice a little bit more these days.
Yeah, we gotta learn, right?
Well, that's
We can
exactly
only
right.
You can only hit your head on the walls so many times because the only thing bleeding is your head. The wall's not bleeding.
Okay, number 116. Do any spirits remain in the lower ranks forever? No, they all eventually become perfect. They change over the course of time, no matter how long the process may take. As we have already explained, a just and merciful Father cannot condemn his children to eternal banishment. Do you presume that God, in his infinite goodness and divine justice, is less kind than you? Of course not. This is, again, indicative of how many times do you bang your head against the wall.
Yeah.
117. Are the spirits themselves responsible for accelerating their progress to perfection? Of course. They reach their goal more or less quickly, depending on the force of their desire and the degree of their submission to God's will. Doesn't a docile and submissive child learn faster than one who is stubborn and lazy?
Right.
So I don't mean to be, I don't mean to make fun of something that is not meant to be made fun of, but I don't know the answer to that last question. Doesn't a docile and submissive child learn faster than one who is stubborn and lazy? And the reason I say that is because I was not a docile and submissive child, and neither of my sons were either. So I don't know what that is. It's not to say that all three of us were stubborn or lazy, but we were not docile and submissive.
Yeah, I don't also agree 100% with being submersible, especially because you have to, I mean, submersible for me is like you have to obey to everything, right? I mean,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
that the right? So
And,
I agree with you. I don't think those words were used
and maybe
properly.
and then maybe the translation
Or
possibly,
yeah, I think the
but
example was poorly used here.
possibly, but now that we're talking about it, let me give a slight variation on the definition. It may mean without resistance to learning. If you think about a child who has homework, it's not that they it's not that they're stubborn and lazy, it's that they're resistant to doing homework. They'd rather be doing something else, you know. Whereas a submissive child, yeah, I have to do homework. Okay, it's the highest priority. Well, if you've raised children, what you know is at some age, it's not the highest priority. And homework is a chore. Studying
So
studying is a chore.
so if you look at the definition of how you say that?
Submissive.
Submissive, it says is to obey or yell to someone else.
Yeah,
When you're submissive, you submit to someone else's will, which literally you put your own desire lower than theirs.
yeah,
You can see this as in Latin. Yeah, I don't think it was properly used.
yeah. I think you're
I
right.
agree with what you're saying, but yeah.
I agree.
it-
I think you're right. I think the word is although this is the second time we've seen reference to obedience.
And it has to, yes. Oh, okay. Hmm.
So
But being obedient is one thing. Submissive, I
submissive
think
is
it's,
something else.
yeah.
Yes,
I
I
think it
agree.
has to do with the translation too.
Possibly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Okay. 118. Can spirits regress? No. They learn what has impeded their progress as they advance. When spirits finish a trial, they learn the lesson of that trial and they never forget it. They may remain stationary, excuse me, but they never regress. So if I think of it as a ladder, you never fall back down.
Yeah, I heard that too, which is kind of a consoling,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You can get stuck, but you can't go back.
right. And certainly, again, paying attention to the definitions of each of the classes, I can see how easy it is to get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 119. Could God exempt spirits from the trials that they must still undergo in order to reach the highest rank? Well, if they had been created perfect, they would not have merited the enjoyment of such perfection. Where would the merit be without struggle? Besides, the inequality that exists between spirits is necessary to develop their personality, and the mission that each spirit accomplishes at each step of their progress is part of God's plan for ensuring the harmony of the universe. So there is
Interesting.
no skipping. You can't skip a rung on the ladder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Each step of the way is full of mission and struggle challenges to be overcome in order to develop and learn. And I like that last part. Each step of their progress is part of God's plan for ensuring the harmony of the universe. So it is not only what individually a spirit is doing as they work their current mission, handle their current struggle. It's how that is in conjunction with all the other spirits at the same time. So
And it wouldn't make sense too if he says yes, because again, if you care about working for your progress, you wouldn't want to skip.
no, of course not. And if we think about it, the three of us on this call right now, we're in, us all going through this process ensures an element of harmony. we're
Mm,
all learning,
yeah.
we're all learning the same thing at the same time. So the last part of this question, since all individuals may reach the highest ranks of social life, we might as well ask, why does the leader of a nation not make every soldier a general? Why are not all subordinate employees made into department heads? Why do all students not become teachers? This is the main difference between life in the social world and that of the spirit world. The first is limited and does not give everyone the opportunity to rise to the top of society, while the latter is unlimited and ensures everyone the possibility of reaching supreme happiness. Ooh, I like that. I didn't remember reading that before.
It's always like the first time reading. I never read of this chapter either.
Life in the social world, life in the spirit.
And this also has to do with being submissive because you have people on higher levels than you. I'm talking about like
In work,
in in our human life, right?
sure.
We all have to obey to somebody that has a higher power than us here. So I think because it has more to do with that being
Well, yeah,
obedience.
the social structure. So,
Yeah,
government, law enforcement, the courts, even even things like banking, medicine, and so on. Yeah, interesting. Okay, let's go on. Number 120. Do all spirits travel the road of evil to arrive at good? The road travel is more like one of unawareness rather than evilness. That is absolutely true.
yeah, that's interesting the way it was put it here. Unawareness, yep, every day.
You know, and unconsciousness, unawareness, lack of knowledge, etc. That that um, that appears at times to be evil when when ignorance, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean the person who is unknowing. When ignorance shows up, it's sometimes at the expense of someone else. Somebody will say something that hurts another person's feelings. Somebody will do something stupid that physically hurts somebody else. Many different types of circumstances, and not knowing that what they did or what they said would have that kind of an impact doesn't make them evil, but they can appear to be evil. The reaction, if you're the person who's been offended, the reaction could be, why did you do that? You did something, you did something not because I did something to you. Well, only evil people do things like that. But it's unawareness.
Yeah,
In fact, I would say that a person has to be conscious in order to be evil. They have to be intentional in order to be evil, intentionally wanting to be evil. Okay, 121. How is it that some spirits have traveled the road of righteous and others the road of evil? Well, of course, do they not all have free will? God has not created bad spirits. They were all created simple and unaware, possessing an equal aptitude for good or bad. Those who became bad became so of their own volition, their own choices, cause and effect. And we are back repeating the statement simple and unaware.
my screen just went off. Which one did you just read?
Oh, I just read 121.
Okay.
Okay, 122. How can spirits possess freedom of choice between good and bad at their origin when they have not yet acquired self-awareness? Is there any principle leading them to either one road over the other? Good question. Free will is developed as spirits acquire consciousness. Freedom would not exist for them if they made choices by any means other than use of their free will. The causes that determine their choices are not within, but outside of them, via the influences to which they voluntarily yield because of their free will. This choice is represented by the fall of humanity and the concept of original sin. Some spirits yield to temptation while others resist it successfully.
Very interesting.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that it takes you the explanation takes you back to the concept of Adam and Eve,
Yes.
and you know whether you think of it as Adam and Eve or whether you think of it as the first earliest men to walk, upright and walk the planet and the evolution of mankind. However you think of it, there were a number of experiences that were learned the hard way. As they had no knowledge, as they began to learn about this world that they're living in, they experienced things for the first time, and a number of things come to mind. Um, a flowing river. They know it's water. They might learn it's water. They learn that it tastes good. They learn that they can't exist without it. But they don't understand the concept of how fast a river can flow, and they certainly don't understand the concept of swimming. So they learn the hard way. And the same can be said for other things in the earth, like fire. Children learn the hard way. They put their hands in the fire. And I think the entire evolution of spirits is exactly that. It's a learning process based on trial and error.
Well, and like it says here, it's about the temptations, right?
Yeah, yeah. Hang on,
No problem.
trying to kill this call. Sign up to answer. What if I don't want to answer? There we go. Okay. Brand new phone. Yes, exactly. Temptation.
It's there for everyone. How you
Well,
gonna deal with it, right?
well, temptation. Interesting. I'll have to think about that one. Let's see. From where do the influences that act upon them originate? From imperfect spirits who seek to dominate them, and they take pleasure in watching their failures. This temptation is represented metaphorically as Satan. So this gets to the reality of we have our own challenges in managing ourselves, and now we have the challenge of being potentially influenced by imperfect spirits around us. And if we're not careful, they can influence us to act in a way that is contrary to progress.
Right, it's about being vigilant. You gotta be vigilant all the time.
Yeah.
Because we're not talking just about vices, the temptations.
No,
It's
I
it's about,
go ahead.
yeah, I mean, it's about manners too. It's about arguing, and it's the temptation. It's so much. It's so easy. Like the short temper, you know, if you have a short temper, so it's about also being patient and listen more than talk. I think sometimes it's very important too, because the influence is out there, right?
Right. I'm quickly texting to a message. Thank you.
Oh,
Sorry. Uh, you know, uh, the comment I was going to make is we're back to the topic of consciousness or awareness, and and you know to to be unaware of the presence of spirits is impossible now. It is amazing to me to think about how many, 60 years I lived on this planet completely unconscious, and now I'm conscious. And while I wouldn't claim knowledge by any stretch, the consciousness is powerful.
well, as long as we have that awareness, I think we're doing good.
Yeah. Well, I forgot who said it. Um, in one of the books. Oh no, it was in a lesson on one of the books. Um, Somebody made the analogy of it's like you have a thermometer in your soul, and it warns you automatically when you're straying into something that gives you either abnormal cold or abnormal hot. So, when you think about temptations and and how a temptation can easily be the wrong thing to do, you're as a spiritist, we now have this thermometer that's our consciousness is aware of the fact that, wait a minute, this would not be a smart thing to do. Whereas for me, before spiritism, I had no such thermometer. I had no such consciousness, no awareness. So I find that truly amazing. And I'm very grateful to God for finally giving me such a gift.
Giving those books to us.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay. Uh, B, does this influence only act upon a spirit at its inception? It follows the spirit through all phases of existence. I knew that. Until it has acquired such absolute self control that vile spirits abandon the attempt to tempt him or her. Yes, 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 yes. It follows the spirit through all phases of existence until it has acquired such absolute control that no lower spirit can impact
That's very powerful. It
them. It is.
reminds me of someone that I know. Like he's he's probably like 40 years old today, but during his whole like teenage years, like maybe ever since he was like 14 until the age of, I want to say, 32, I was very involved in drugs and alcohol. And I mean, I can only imagine, you know, the kind of spirits that he had around him. And then I think it was when he was 32 or 33, he um he got he got very ill, so he had to make a choice himself if he was gonna stop or he was gonna die. And he stopped. It's been 8 years. He's totally, totally, totally clean. He's a spiritist, and he actually was ever since he was a child because his parents, but he never really followed anything. So this answer remind me of him because it says it follows you all the phases until he acquired absolute self-control, and then those spirits had probably, you know, abandoned him
Yeah,
because they had no more. There was he wasn't feeding them anymore. So it's 100% you. It's 100% your will, and you are the one that chooses. So you choose the path that you want to do to your life and who you want to have around you.
very true. Very true.
And when somebody discovers that, because again, I mean, it's not the spirit is, it's not being a spirit, it's just being a Christian, believing on the energy. When somebody discovers that this is so powerful, that you have control of your fate, you have control of your life, no one else does. And it's very fortunate when somebody can discover that, still being incarnated, not having to disincarnate to go through the whole process of regretting all the stuff you did, and then having to come back and do and probably go through the same thing, right? Which is not going to stop you from coming back and probably going through the same to see if you can
It's,
endure again. But
it's
at least it's one more step in that ladder that we're talking about.
well, it, it stands. I'm making an assumption here that I will reincarnate and still have many of the same lessons to learn, but I will be on the road to learning them already. You know, I, I, I don't know how I don't know how to explain it better than to say I have comfort in knowing that I get I get a chance to fix what's still broken. There we go.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I needed to say. And I get a chance now to do that,
Mm-hmm.
but I will definitely continue to have chances to do that because I'm not there yet.
Mm.
Uh, okay, all ready to go on?
Yep.
Okay, 123. Why has God enabled the possibility of spirits taking the wrong road? How do you dare ask God to give account for the divine acts? Do you think you can penetrate God's designs? Instead, you should say that the wisdom of God is shown in the free will that God grants to every spirit, for each has the merit of his or her actions. So here we are again, cause and effect. But the question is I guess, contemptuous. Why has God enabled the possibility of them taking the wrong road? How dare you ask God?
Yeah, exactly what we just said, right? You
Yeah,
choose your own free will. You choose your fate.
you choose your path. You choose how long you stay on that rung on the ladder before you decide to move up.
Yep.
124. Since there are spirits who unwaveringly traveled the path of righteousness right from the beginning, and others who swerve onto the wrong paths, isn't it likely that there are many degrees of deviation between these two extremes? Well, of course. These degrees constitute the paths of most spirits. Yeah, there's no such thing as a straight road. There's no such thing as the shortest path between 2 points when it comes to progressing as a spirit. The trials and the missions are going to be unique to that spirit. And as we've been
Yeah.
and as we've been saying, free will determine how fast, how complete, how effective the mission and the struggles were. Huh. 124. Since there are spirits who unwaveringly travel the wait a minute, I just read that. 125. Will spirits who have chosen the wrong road be able to reach the same degree of elevation as others? Yes, but the eternities will be longer for them. This expression, the eternities, must be understood as referring to the belief that inferior spirits hold regarding the endless nature of their suffering, resulting from the fact that they do not have the ability to foresee the end of that suffering. This conviction of the endless nature of the latter is reaffirmed after each new trial to which they have succumbed. Wow, what a great statement. Okay, so here's use of a word that doesn't necessarily mean what the intent is. The word suffering. Excuse me. While it could literally mean suffering, it's the endless nature of the trials, the challenges, the mission. The endless nature. And it's also, as this answer says, it's the not knowing when it will end or if it will end. Well, I'm learning in this lifetime now that time time is what time is. We can't control it, we can't slow it down, we can't shorten it. And if it takes longer than we like, oh well.
I keep reading the same paragraph like 3 times to make sure I understand. But I guess every time you read, you find something new, something different.
A new angle.
Mm-hmm. Because when I read the eternities will be longer for them. If I didn't read the next, I would just simplify that as the eternity of the suffering. Because you're gonna have to go back to the same things, right? When you choose the wrong road, you pretty much lost the whole um, incarnation for nothing. What a
Well,
waste of time.
well, okay. While that may be factually accurate, now I ask you this. Is there any way of knowing how many incarnations you've already had?
Probably not. Of course not.
Is
Not
there
now, only when
and,
I'm
and,
there.
and is there any way of knowing how many incarnations are yet to come? And the answer,
Right.
of course not. And so when you consider that, now consider this next question. What is the duration of time between each incarnation? So while you are factually accurate that you wasted this lifetime, in the grander scheme of things, this lifetime is nothing.
It's nothing.
Probably. Now, I would expect that if you think about the 10 steps of the ladder, that the higher you are up on the ladder, time has a very different element.
Yeah.
The lower you are on the ladder, time time has a very well, you know, if I think about the movie and it shows the lowest spirits crawling through the muck, and the duration of time we've read in many different books about how the characters spend in that suffering environment, whatever it may be. We've heard about, some whose deeds were so significant and their learning so challenging that it took hundreds of years, 500 years, that type of thing, for them to be stuck in that place before they get the
Yeah.
opportunity to do it again and fix it, get it right. And so, I think, as I was saying earlier, time is this, I have this whole different perspective on time thanks to spiritism. It's irrelevant. The sand that is going through the hourglass in this lifetime, it is what it is.
Yeah, for everyone is different, and but what I was trying, like, when I say, the waste of time is that, have you learned anything? If you have not been able to um accomplish, but were you able to learn with that? So when you come back, you'll be able to do things differently.
Well,
But the thing is, we don't remember where we did last incarnation, right?
of course, of course. But 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 we live this life as though we will know, as though we would know.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And so in living this life, if we are honest with ourselves, we say things like, gee, I could have studied for another hour. I could have read another chapter of the Spirit's book, instead of playing, leaving early to go play golf. I could have done, I could have, I should have, and so on. And so I get to the end of my life, and here's this, I could have been better. Well, I'll get to fix that in the next life. I don't know. That's just what I've learned so far, I think. Okay, 126. Are spirits who have reached the supreme degree after wandering down the wrong road less worthy than others in God's eyes? God views the drifters who have returned to the right path with the same approval and loves them regardless of their past. They have been classified as bad spirits because they yielded to bad temptations. Before their fall, they were merely simple spirits.
So again, I think it's talking about everyone has the same chance, right?
Yep,
Regardless of your past.
yep.
There's still hope.
Well, this gets to the essence of forgiveness because
Exactly.
unlike society, the spiritual world doesn't keep records of past transgressions. It acknowledges that you had mistakes in past transgressions and then you move forward.
Very good.
I like that last sentence. Before their fall, they were merely simple spirits. That's just so good.
Well, I remember doing I remember, oh God, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Doing a presentation when I was talking exactly like that, about that all the spirits are like kids, it's like babies. They all have that sense of pure inside of them, but
Right.
life goes on, and then as they grow, they go to the right, to the wrong path. But as long as they come back, just like the example I gave you about that individual, now he's in the good path.
Yeah.
So regardless of their past.
Out of the darkness into the light. Stay in the light.
Yeah.
All right, one more question in this section. 127. Are all spirits created equal in terms of intellectual capacity? They are all created equal, but as they do not know from where they originate, their free will must take its course. They progress more or less rapidly in both intelligence and morality. Digging deeper, spirits who follow the right path from the beginning do not attain perfection right away. Despite being free from iniquity, they have to acquire the experience and wide ranging knowledge necessary for their perfection. They may be compared to children who, no matter how good their natural instincts are, need to be developed and enlightened, and who cannot mature without transition. Just as some people are good and others bad from infancy, some spirits are good and others bad from their inception. There is, however, one radical difference. A child possesses instincts that have already been formed, while the spirit, at its creation, is neither good nor bad. Rather, it possesses all possible tendencies and strikes out on its path through the action of its free will. So there's a couple of things that jump out at me. The first is the distinction of a spirit at its initial start. And it's hard for me to conceive a first time spirit on this planet. It's like all the spirits on this planet, they're in the cycle of reincarnations already. But obviously, that's not true. I had never thought about that
Spirits who follow the right path. Yeah, and it's even saying the ones who follow the right path from the beginning, they don't they don't obtain perfection right away as well. We all have to go through.
before. Right,
Hmm.
right.
Very interesting.
Yeah, good stuff to read this again. Just deeper knowledge, deeper understanding. Very good. Would one of you ladies like to close us in prayer?
I can do it.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go ahead and close our eyes, elevate our thoughts, be thankful for the opportunity that we had tonight to learn a little bit more about our existence, to become better human beings, to all the good spirits that came here with us to learn our eternal gratitude to them. We ask that they help us through this journey, that they help us to go through the obstacles, to the trials, that we learn how to be grateful every day, never asking but be thankful to God, to Jesus, to the ones around us, to our spiritual friends, our eternal gratitude, and so be it.
So be it.
Thank you, Mark. I really, really enjoy your explanations.
Thank you, Samantha.
You should be our official one now. Very good. You have such a calming voice, right, Louisa?
Yes, yes.
And it's it's very nice to hear you. So
To
thank you
hear,
so
yeah.
much. I am very glad you are part of our group now.
I am too. I am too. Okay, ladies,
Me
have a
too.
blessed night. I leave tomorrow for Sacramento, but I will join next Tuesday.
You have, I think next Tuesday we're gonna have 2 weeks off, right, Louisa?
Oh,